Good morning, boys and girls. I am going to read to you part of Peter and the Starcatchers. We are going to review in this first recording chapters 57 and 58. Since it's been so long since we've read this aloud together, I thought a good review would help us to remember what it is that we've been reading. So, chapter 57 is An Old Friend. Peter and the others just made it to the beach. The star stuff began wearing off while they were still over the jungle. For a few minutes, Peter thought they would be plunged into thick, dark vegetation underlying the moonlit tree canopy. He didn't relish the thought of being lost in there at night. But with James's help, Peter was able to drag the little hand-holding group of reluctant flyers into one last swoop and soar, and this time, as they reached the apex of their upward curve, he heard Molly just ahead, shouting and pointing, and then saw, to his great relief, shouting and pointing, the white of the beach looking like snow under the startlingly bright moon. "Hang on," he shouted. "We're coming down over there." They just cleared the last set of palms. In fact, Alf's feet brushed the highest one, sending a coconut thudding to the sand. And then they crash-landed onto the beach, tumbling and rolling a few yards from where Molly was waiting. They were at the edge of a sandy cove, bounded on either side by steep, rocky hillsides. For a moment, Alf, James, Prentice, Thomas, and Tubby Ted stood speechless, brushing off sand and absorbing their disbelief at their flight, and relief at being on the ground again. Then the questions started. "How did we do that?" asked Prentice. "How could we, and the crocodile," interrupted Thomas. "I'm hungry," said Tubby Ted. "Is there any—" "And that thing," said James. "That thing we touched. What was that? It felt so—" "It was the magic from the trunk, wasn't it, lad?" said Alf. You must have—" "Can we fly again?" said James. "Yes," said Prentice and Thomas simultaneously. "We want to—" All right," said Peter. "I'll try to explain, though it's a bit, strange. But first I have to, listen, just wait here a minute." Peter walked to where Molly was standing, watching him, her expression blank as he approached. "You came back," he said, "to rescue me." He blushed. Us." "Yes," she said. "Thank you," he said. Molly didn't answer. "But you said you couldn't," Peter said. "You said you had to get the trunk. You said that was the most important thing." "It is," she said, "and I should have left you. Now I don't know how much star stuff I have left in that locket, and it's night, and the pirates are on the island, and I fear they already have the trunk. It's been moving, Peter. I felt it. Somebody has found it, and whoever it is won't want us to have it. And now those natives will be after us, and that crocodile is loose somewhere, and I'm just afraid it's hopeless." Peter saw she was crying. He wanted to hug her, but he couldn't, not with Alf and the others watching. He settled for patting her shoulder. "It'll be all right," he said. "We'll find the trunk." Molly forced a smile. "I appreciate that, Peter. I know you want to help. But at this point, honestly, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do." "You say you can feel the trunk," Peter said. "Yes." "Do you know what direction it's in?" "No, only that it's moving." "Well, if it is, then somebody's moving it, and perhaps we'll be able to see it. In the morning, we'll climb that mountain again and have a look." Molly nodded. "I suppose that's as good a plan as any. In the meanwhile," said Peter, "we need to get some sleep if we can. We can set up a watch in case somebody comes along. Or that thing," he shuddered, thinking about Mr. Grin. "All right," said Molly, her spirits picking up a bit, now that they had a plan. "And I should give you this back," said Peter, reaching for the locket around his neck. "You might—" "Did you hear that?" Molly said, her hand on Peter's arm. "What?" said Peter. "I didn't—" "Shh!" hissed Molly. She cocked her head, listening, then smiled. "It's him," she said, tossing the words back over her shoulder, as she was already running toward the water. "Who?" said Peter, running to catch her. But her attention was focused ahead, and the sounds she was making were not intended for him. And then Peter saw a familiar shape, a blunt and grinning snout sticking up from the moonlit wavelets, perhaps 10 yards offshore, clicking and chittering in return. "Peter shouted.